Hello, friends, and welcome back to Market Shares. I'm your host, Tony Blodgett, and today I got a great interview for you. As you can see, we're in the new studio. It's not 100% yet. I got to be honest with you. We still have some improvements to make, but it will get dialed in. But it's just good to be back in my own studio and getting back to it here with Market Shares. So today I got a great interview. I promise you some great conversations as we move through 2025, and I think today is going to be a great one. I have Arjun Dhingra with me, and much like myself, been in the mortgage industry for over 25 years, Arjun.
Yeah.
So I think we have that in common. And what I wanted to focus this conversation on today was really around, utilizing AI, chatbots, things of that nature, and social media. Being the two mortgage, guys that we are, we could probably go on about all sorts of different things. And based on our pre-conversation, we might end up having to do another one of these episodes because I'm sure there's lots of stuff that we have in common and we could wrap on for our audience here for hours. But, I really have been thinking about AI in particular. And I mean, gosh, you look at, so many people now have heard of ChatGPT. It's been out for a while. They've been using it, but now it's like built right into your iPhone. If you're an iPhone user, it's built right in there. I talk to my kids and, they're using it for all sorts of different stuff. I mean, it's really become very mainstream, but yet I feel like so many people in the mortgage space still, when they hear that you should be leveraging these tools, I don't know that they know how to put it into practice. So I thought maybe what we could do today is talk a little bit about how you've leveraged these tools, maybe people that that are using it at a high level, and just share with the audience some things that maybe they didn't consider about how they could use that. And then I think we can also spend some time talking about social media because, man, you've done a really phenomenal job as a mortgage professional to create a brand on social media. And I'd love to have you share some of those things too. So, man, welcome to Market Shares, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Of course, Tony. It's great to be on with you, brother. Big fan of what you do for our industry and for the space. And I'm always up for these kinds of conversations, man, especially if they're going to help out fellow stewards of this real estate industry. Yeah,
no, it's really fun. And one other thing that I should mention about your background, which I kind of found out as I was doing some research about you, is you spent quite a bit of your life, and I think still are active in martial arts. You're a two-time world champion, Taekwondo champion, and were an instructor and still practice that today. And that resonated with me because I spent quite a few years myself in a different style of martial arts, in karate, which is more Japanese style, versus the Taekwondo, which is Korean. But I think the discipline and the respect and the commitment that martial arts takes, I just don't see how, especially when you do it in your formative years, I think it really helps create a person. And people have asked me in the past, like, how did martial arts influence how, you are in business today? And I don't even know that I could put my finger on it, but I can tell you there's absolutely an influence. And really, you see a lot of similarities in people, in my opinion, that have a martial arts background in the way that they not only approach life, but approach business. And so anyway, that was really cool to see, and tons of respect for you, man. I mean, competing at that level is no joke, and Taekwondo is no joke. People, when I was in karate, which is a style that's, about 50% hand techniques, 50% foot techniques. You don't want to fight a guy in Taekwondo because, there's a lot of leg action going on there, and you guys can do some crazy kicks and real heavy on the kicks. And man, if you're not ready for that, it's a whole nother level. So, and it's an Olympic sport, which is really cool. That wasn't an option for karate. I don't think it ever will be, but really cool to see what Taekwondo has done in the world of sports too, bringing martial arts mainstream for people.
For sure, man. And it's interesting, just to touch on this before we move into the meat and potatoes of this all. Karate is, came before Taekwondo. So they're actually connected. For people listening, your art that you practiced and dedicated so much of your life to, which is also no joke and is a very serious thing, is actually what inspired Taekwondo. Taekwondo, when it came into existence, was the fusion of karate and taekyon, which was ancient Korean foot fighting. So they
Mm.
took karate principles, combined it with taekyon, fused it together, and that's what Taekwondo is, or Taekwondo, which is hand foot art. That's what it stands for. But the roots of it are all from karate. Like that was part of its manifest. So that's what makes the two kind of like joined. Like they're almost like cousins in a way.
Yeah. That makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. I mean, karate is, empty hand, right? So it was focused
Right.
on hand techniques. It
Right.
adopted some foot techniques and some kicking and stuff, but on a much more basic level than Taekwondo. And so that makes sense that that's a fusion of, the footwork and whatnot that other style brought. That makes a lot of sense. And look, I have lots of respect. My son, actually, we got him enrolled at 3.5 years old. He started doing Kung Fu. And I was like, I don't know much about Kung Fu, but it doesn't really matter to me. To me, it was get involved in martial arts, the discipline and the respect and all the things that come with it. He's a black belt, a junior black belt in still goes, actively to classes, multiple times a week. And it's made a difference and it will make a difference. He's 11 years old and being involved in that from such a young age. And like I said, through your formidable years, I think it changes a person. So anyway, mad respect to you. Well, let's jump into this. I want to talk a little bit about AI and I want to talk about social media, but let's start with kind of, AI. I guess my first question would just be for you, how did you start using AI? How long ago did, when you found out, was it ChatGPT? Was there some other, type of AI that you were using? And, kind of what was your introduction to it? How did you kind of start learning about AI and just from the very beginning? What did that look like for you?
So I think the thing for everyone to recognize is that a lot of us were using AI without really knowing it. Because AI, again, guys, it's their particular language models, right? It's artificial intelligence, but it's their language models that we're using to help make our jobs easier at the end of the day. It's not an additional thing. Yes, it's a new thing that we got to learn. There's new platforms, new technologies out there. But at the end of the day, this is designed to help you take back more of your time so that you can actually be good at your job instead of the mundane things that are now replaced. And not just replaced, but replaced with really high value, and high execution. So AI is everywhere now. I mean, it's part of Meta's platform. Like there's an AI component when you're using your Instagram platform. So you might think, I don't use much AI. It's already in there. It's helping you find things. It's helping you create answers. It's got its own internal like search queue. Like there's a lot of important things where it's already present. You just may not realize it. For me, over the last, I'd say like 18 months or so is when I kind of started being a lot more focused on using it. There was intentionality there. And it started with ChatGPT because I was able to recognize and see that through ChatGPT, I could come up with ideas and structure. And I just messed around with it. Guys, by no means, and those people who listen to this, and you too, Tony, will know, I am not tech savvy. If anything, I'm a tech moron. Right. I have a great team around me. People think I must be tech savvy because I put out all this content and I do all this stuff and we've connected on social media or whatever. And so you think I'm really savvy. I'm not. I've got great people around me. But what I will tell everyone, if you identify with that on some level, is that all of this, because it's so new, which is what makes it very exciting. And it also makes a huge opportunity. It's there for you to try out. Don't be intimidated by it. Just embrace it and try things out. So I dug into ChatGPT for using it for content ideas. I would actually, and you learn, it's kind of like how you feel someone out. It's almost like another being or another person that you're collaborating with. So it needed to learn my language model, how I approach things, what my tone is, my background, who I'm specifically trying to connect with. And that was a key word, is you got to be very specific with it. So when I first started with ChatGPT, just looking for ideas, hey, give me an idea that would be relevant for a first-time home buyer in today's market, I would get a lot of broad topics. When I started getting really specific and teaching the platform about who I am and where I'm coming from and who I'm trying to connect with, and rephrasing that question, say, for example, of saying, I am a mortgage professional 25 years. I predominantly work with first-time home buyers in the San Francisco Bay Area market. My buyers are typically between the ages of 30 and 45 years old. They work in technology. So I started being really specific about what I'm trying to come up with and who I want it to be for. And then when I said, please help me come up with 2 topics that are relevant in today's market, applied to today's economy, that would be useful information for a potential first-time home buyer to listen to. And when I started being that specific with it, the answers I was getting back in the structure were like phenomenal. And that is when the light bulb went off, and I thought, okay, this is like really having a partner. It's not just another thing to learn or do. This is literally like having a partner. And now it made sense why copywriters are being replaced at companies, at mortgage companies and real estate companies, why other certain key assistants are being removed, right? Like there's AI models that are out there that'll go into your schedule and calendar and find the gaps and help you group things together and help you organize your time. Like it's literally like having a virtual assistant. And again, guys, as I mentioned at the onset of this question, this is only the beginning. So for lenders and how I did it, to bring it back full circle to your question here, Tony, it was starting off with ChatGPT. I still spend a lot of time on ChatGPT. That's probably my number one AI platform that I engage with weekly for ideas, for structure, for help. I've used it to even help me come up with a contract, for all my speaking engagements. Like help me come up with a contract for the industry, protect me on this, and this level, and make it very clear who it's for. And I'd love for this to be convertible into a PDF. Boom. I thought to myself, like, that was great. I was literally talking to an assistant and it helped me come up with this thing. So I hope at least with that much there, everyone can start to embrace this and take a breath and be like, okay, this is actually something that would help. It doesn't need to be something that's intimidating or it's like yet another thing I got to figure out. I'm trying to get a loan closed here. This market's already tough enough and you're telling me to embrace AI. Like I don't have time for AI, right? Like you do. And it's actually going to help you get more time back.
Yeah, I'm glad you presented it that way. I think you're right. I think that people need to just start using it. And what's funny about AI is it is like a person. So you can actually even ask it, how could you help me? Like, I have this problem. What are the kind of things that you might be able to do to help me solve for this problem? Like, you'll be surprised. And you mentioned contract. I've written a number of contracts for different things, job descriptions, employment contracts. It's not an attorney. It'll tell you that. It'll tell you it's not an attorney, but it'll definitely help you write agreements. I had one this weekend, and this is just a funny use case. I'm actually buying a shipping container, like a used shipping container for my property to have for additional storage. And there's a lot of scams out there right now around people that are selling shipping containers and they're trying to just get money from you. There's lots of scams out there for everything. You got to be really careful. But what was funny about this is I took the website and I uploaded it to ChatGPT. I said, does this website look like it's a legitimate business? I uploaded a PDF of the invoice that this company sent me because I was very suspicious. And it read it and I said, well, here's the things about this invoice that, these things look legitimate, but here's all the red flags. And there was a lot of them. It's little things like that, that ChatGPT can help you out with. And I think to your point is just start using it, just like if it was, if you had an assistant that sat in the desk across the room from you and you could ask that person to help you out with things that came up, start asking ChatGPT about things that come up that you have in your schedule and that you might need ideas about. And you'll find more and more ways of using it, right? Now I got to ask you, obviously creating content is, makes a lot of sense. Is there any other kind of one-off things that you find yourself going to ChatGPT for that might be, things that people might not think about? Anything that you're like, oh yeah, ChatGPT now helps me handle this thing and it's giving me a lot of time back. Anything you could think of that jumps out at you?
Well, the thing that just keeps coming to mind is like in the content space, because for a lot of lenders and, or mortgage professionals, they know that content is king and you got to be doing it. But then it becomes daunting of what am I going to come up with? How do I take time out to structure it? And if you take it even a step further, for those that are really doing it on all fronts or trying to like maximize it, when you think about YouTube as an example, and this is the example, this is where I was going with it. YouTube is a platform where you can go longer and it's becoming increasingly more popular. And I think it is the platform for anyone in real estate, whether you're mortgage or real estate brokerage. Like it's the platform of choice now. There's so much business to be gained from having a presence on YouTube. But then when you think, how am I going to take the time to figure out a 10, 15, 20-minute video that I'm going to put together? And ChatGPT is absolutely perfect for this. Again, if you're very specific with it, and I'd say as a content creator, I will, when I ask for ideas or I want to run, even going back to short form stuff, like say for Instagram or TikTok, I'll ask for like, hey, tell me about a current event that has to do with a celebrity and a real estate decision, whether it was a bonehead mistake or a really cool story, because it's pop culture. It's something that people can identify with. It's kind of mindless. People feel connected to it. And then I can take it back and bring it back to reality, right? Like, no matter how wealthy you are or what price point you're buying in, the fundamentals still apply. Like when you buy, when you sell, pricing it right. I talked about like Nicolas Cage losing a bunch of money on a house, or how Jennifer Lopez seems to just get luckier with age. Like she makes more money on every divorce house that she sells. Like she sells them higher. She's one of the few, and she's looking better and better as she passes the age of 50. Like she's doing something right and the rest of us are doing wrong. So I'll joke about stuff like that, but I'll get some of those ideas. And then I had a huge crush on Jennifer Lopez in college, so that's why that example came to mind. But then I'll also use, example like for YouTube, I will come up with I will ask ChatGPT for an actual structure. I'm putting together a YouTube video. It needs to be 15 minutes. I'll be really specific. Again, 15 minutes long. The audience are, 20 and 30 something tech and white collar professionals that are in the Bay Area market. So I'm saying who it's for again. And I need a whole structure. I need an outline of what I would talk about. And I want it to be about, is San Francisco making a comeback? That's my title. Help me put together a YouTube video on this topic. I'll get the entire format and an outline of what it wants me to do. Then what I'll do, I'll just go even further on. I'll say, okay, now can you help me extract 10 pieces from this outline that I could use for Instagram that would be 30 seconds long, really short, sweet, and to the point. And again, for the same style audience, it'll spit those back to me. So just in literally being specific and intentional, I've come up with a long form YouTube video with an outline that I don't have to think about anything now. I just got to follow it, fill in the blanks, or just use it as a guide as I have this free flowing conversation. And it also gave me 10 short bits that I can do that'll tie right back and create some relevance to this piece. So the amount of time that it bought me back, because I think of everything as a content creator. I'll be honest with you, aside from certain business practices of needing certain administrative things like a contract or creating some structure for something that has to do within my own business itself, really what most of my day as a mortgage professional is, aside from serving clients, but I have a team that does that. And so I check in with them, is how do I innovate and how do I market? Those two things, right? Those are Tony Robbins quotes. Like that's the only responsibility of any business. Innovate and market. Get better, get sharper, and tell the whole world about it, right? And that's what you use for marketing. So I'm always thinking of stuff. So this is where I spend the most time. So anything that I can do that's going to help me get more time, leverage, squeeze more juice out of that orange, so to speak. And in the example I just gave you there, is what I'm all about. So that's just that's a simple example, but something that I think everyone listening to this, regardless of what stage you're at or how you view AI at this point, is something that you could apply and actually put into action right now.
100%, 100%. No, I'm just curious, in your mortgage business, are you using AI at all in the mortgage business as it relates to, creating content for customers, or how it is they go through their journey, or any of that communication? Or are you keeping it more on the social media content side?
No, I've used it for guides, like actual things, tangible things that we'll give back to clients. Like I've asked ChatGPT, I want to create a home buyer guide that would be converted into a 1-page PDF. And I'd like for it to be like the three steps to preparing yourself before you embark on home ownership, like getting your credit in order, setting a budget, reviewing finances, whatever it is. Like it's come up with that stuff. And then I've been able to take it and then create a graphic or an image out of it. So it's like home buyer guides, sales tools, other things that you want to give. You could do this for referral partners as well. So there's a lot of things I've been able to do that aren't necessarily content related, but they're still part of my business.
Got it. Now, let me ask you this. I had heard early on, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but that ChatGPT only went back like to 2021 or something like that. Like it wasn't pulling current relevant data as a reference, but you had said that you've used it for pulling like current pop culture things. So has that changed, or is it, if you have the paid version, then it's getting more current information, or do you know if it's what
You
it's
know, it's a
doing there
tricky
as far
thing.
as.
It's a tricky thing because I used to get stumped by that too. But then to your point, like it's giving me current stuff, when it comes to pop culture. So I feel like it applies to certain bits and it will generally tell you, I can't go that far back, or this is like
Mm,
it's very responsible that way because it doesn't want to mislead you. So the language model will actually spit back to you and disclose or disclaim that it cannot go back, or this is all we can do, or what our limitation is. So you'll get that. But sometimes I get that when I ask a certain type of question, but then when I ask it a different way or I ask a totally different question, I don't feel that that limitation is there. So it's not the best answer in the world. And I don't have an exact pinpoint on this as to what they've done, but I feel like sometimes I get it. Now, when I, instead of using ChatGPT, when I've used Google's model as well, Bard, when I've used that, that has I've not had the same limitations, if any, at all. I feel like that's gone so much more, so much deeper and wider and just actually almost been limitless. So kind of depends on which one you use, but you could use either or. I feel like they're pretty synonymous with each other in terms of the user experience and how you want to train it and teach it and use the platform. But yeah, I think it's still kind of working itself out, but I don't feel those limitations are maybe as prevalent as they were in the beginning, Tony, when you
well,
the way you asked that.
yeah, no, okay. Well, that's helpful. It is nice when you search something on Google now and you can just get an AI response, because more often than not, when we're searching something on Google, we don't want to necessarily buy the item. Like, it always seems to show you ads, and it shows you, things that you might want to buy that are similar to the question you asked it. But it's like, you have a very specific question. Like, for instance, I had to pick up this is a funny one, but I had to pick up a transmission, and I wanted to know if it fit in the back of my Jeep, right? It was a transmission for a classic Volkswagen Bug that I have. And I'm like, will this fit in the back of my Jeep? And will I even be able to lift it up? Because I didn't know how heavy it was. So I went on and ChatGPT. I'm like,
Right.
how much does this thing weigh? And will the dimensions fit in a 2023 Jeep Wrangler? And it literally said the Jeep is this size and the transaxle is this size and it weighs 91 pounds and, it'll fit. I'm like, I never would have thought about that, but things like that. I asked ChatGPT everything. So and the reason I wanted to do this episode is I want people, I'm not super tech savvy either, right? I mean, I have a great team around me and I have a lot of people that help me out. But what I've learned is just simply remembering to go to ChatGPT and try something. Try asking it these questions, you'll learn. All of a sudden you go, man, this thing can do more than I thought it could do. Things that you thought you would normally Google, you'll want to look up in a chat bot, because you'll get a more precise answer to the actual question that you have. And so using the right tools for the right things are important. And look, Arjun said it best. This is just the beginning. This is the tip of the spear when it comes to what AI is going to do. And I think you're going to see it accelerate significantly in 2025. So don't try to catch up in 2026. Like, start now just with the basics. And that way, as more and more tools and resources and more integrations happen, right? There's going to be integrations. Like, if you're in the mortgage business, your pricing engine, if it doesn't already, is going to have some significant AI built into it. Your CRM system, regardless of which one you use, I'm not promoting any specific CRM. They're all going to have more and more AI into it. Every piece of software that you use in the mortgage space will continue to have AI built into it. And if you learn how to use it now with ChatGPT or whatever the case may be, it'll just make more sense on how to leverage that as it gets fully integrated into more and more of the things that we use every day.
Yep.
Does that sound about right?
That's 100%. I don't think I could have said it any better, man. You're spot on with it.
So let's talk about social media really quick, because you got quite a few followers on Instagram and have done a really good job of building out your presence there. Maybe let's just, like I did with AI, let's back it up to the beginning. Like, what was your intro into social media? Was it Instagram, or did you kind of start somewhere else and then realize that Instagram was made the most sense, or maybe there's other platforms you use today. But just talk about the beginning of social media for you, what it meant for you, and then let's talk about how that's evolved, and then what you're doing today to really what you think is kind of a best practice for a mortgage and real estate professional on how they should be using it, day to day.
Yeah. So originally I was like on MySpace, not to date myself. Never used it for business stuff. It was used for like socializing, right? And like trying to like find dates and find out what's going on with friends or just see what's happening. So it was a lot of fun. Then I moved over to Facebook, and Facebook for me, which is where I've been on the longest, like obviously that was a platform used for staying connected to college buddies, hometown friends, and also in my martial arts world, it made the world smaller. Like all the athletes that I knew from other countries and that I would meet at World Cups and World Championships, that's how we'd stay connected. So it was kind of this community, but it was never really being activated or engaged for anything business-wise or to take ownership of a personal brand, which I think everyone needs to recognize. You've got one, you just maybe haven't taken ownership of it. Everyone's got a brand. You can refine it. You don't need to develop it. It's already there. It's just a matter of whether or not you have ownership of it and you're continuing to refine it and hone it, or if it's just kind of running wild. So I was on platforms for pure social purposes. Where I really got into this and where the inflection point was about 6 years ago. But prior to that, I was on Facebook. I had a Twitter account where I would get a lot of news and sports information because I'd follow all my favorite sportscasters and all my teams, journalists and all that stuff of the teams that I'm into. And then I was on Instagram because it was just a photo sharing app at the time. There was no video component to it or anything. And it was cool. It was just kind of the new cool thing. And I was ready to quit the industry about 6 years ago because I had this, this moment where I stood up for a meeting with an agent and I got yelled at by some other agent partners and I lost the deal that same day. It was like just the perfect, Tony, what those days are like. It's like literally the universe is telling you, why the hell are you in this industry? Like, dude, you don't belong. So I felt like this black cloud was over me, and I called up my business coach and asked him, like, I think I should be doing something else, man. He says, look, I know you're good at what you do and you're good at what you do, but does anyone else? And I want everyone listening to kind of ask that question of themselves. Does anyone else know that you're really good at what you do? If I Google you, what am I going to find? If I pull you up online, what am I going to find? Am I just going to see how you socialize and tear it up on weekends, or am I going to see that you're of real value and you're kind of indispensable in this market and you're like a force? So he said, I don't know what the answer is, man. He wasn't suggesting social media. He says, I don't know what the answer is, but you're going to have to figure that out, because if you can figure that out, you'll have a job. And if you don't figure it out, you're going to be nothing more than whatever your rate is today. And for a lot of lenders, it's very easy to get commoditized, feel disrespected, and kind of feel like a doormat. We're only as good as the rate we have, or we're only as good as the market offerings that are out there. And outside of that, nobody really needs me. Well, I used to take great issue with that. I still do. There's a little bit of a chip on my shoulder with it because I'm a big proponent of this industry all getting better, because I know that mortgage professionals are the unsung hero of every transaction, but yet we get treated as like lowest on the totem pole. So I thought, okay, how can I flip this? And I thought, okay, social media could be something. There was a Gary Vee event that my brother was going to, at that point about 6 years ago, and he asked me to come with him. And I'd been reading some Gary Vee books and recognized him as a global marketing authority and thought leader. So I thought, okay, I'll go. But if I can get the market to start seeing me differently, and I know I can beat my competition because I work in a big bank market. So most everyone opts for a big bank experience because of the private banking element, the fact that they can offer 2% rates. Well, they won't do that too much more often because that sinks the bank, as First Republic figured out. Like, you can't do that. So you got to be smart about it. But so this is who I compete against. And they view me as kind of like this is where you go as like a last resort. I'm like, no, I don't. I know I have more value than that. I know I'm as smart, if not smarter, than some of these guys working behind desks at big banks. And God knows they all wear suits that don't fit them. I dress better than them too. So how can I fix this? So I knew they can't do anything on social. They're handcuffed. They're not allowed to have a presence on social. So I said, look, if I become the best known commodity in my market, and again, this is another point at which I want the listener to grasp. If I can raise my visibility, I have direct control of that. I'll never be able to control who ultimately works with me. None of us can, right? As much as we like to think, there's still that small fallout gap that you have no control over it, and where you may have lost the deal or a relationship. But I can, with 100% certainty, control how visible I am in this market. And if I'm the best known commodity in my market, I'll get enough conversations, which will lead to enough opportunities, which will lead to more than enough business. And that's all we care about at the end of the day. I'll have more of an impact, right? I won't have to do every deal, and I don't care. If I'm doing a lot of business, this is going to work. So I went all in on it. Now, when I got started in it, creating videos and putting it out on these platforms, I stuck with primarily at the time just Instagram. And then I would kind of share some of it on Facebook. Facebook, secondarily, only because it was like a big personal place for me. It was just like I said, it was my old college buddies, the taekwondo world internationally. Like, these are not people that are looking for financial literacy stuff. So I kind of was a little bit slower to adopt that. But I went all in on Instagram because at that point, the video feature was starting to really take off. So still photographs were obviously big, but video was starting to really take hold. So I got very much into it and started posting stuff, trial and error. Again, just like we talked about with ChatGPT, I'd try and follow some thought leaders, and I was just trying things out. I was making connections, but I recognized a few things right off the bat. Number one, it kind of reinvigorated my enthusiasm or spark for the industry, because sitting behind a desk, watching MBS charts, getting yelled at and mailing out estimates to everyone, it became a little bit mundane, and it just wasn't what my personality was suited for. I'm a social guy. I like to talk and engage people and offer solutions and kind of be that person that helps the puzzle all come together. So social was an interesting way to do it, because I could reach out to and scale everything I was already doing, but throw gas on the fire. Yeah, I could make 100 cold emails or outreaches to agents, which would take me the better part of a month, right? Maybe a little less. I could do 100 in a day on social. I could digitally door knock. I could reach out. So I started seeing this leverage point with it. And like the numbers started multiplying in my head. I can reach way more people. I can put out a piece of content that gets viewed or seen by 100 plus people. Like, there's power in that. A lot of people think that social media is a bit saturated or the opportunity is lost. I promise you, if you're a mortgage or real estate professional listening to this, the opportunity is as big, if not bigger today than it was at any point, because the floor is so low. 90% of our industry puts out content that is shit. It has no value to the end user. It's more to glorify them or their brokerage or company because it's lazy. They just want to check the box. If you put out something that is just incrementally higher, just tiny incrementally higher, a small bit of value that solves people's problems, clarifies something for them, addresses their confusion or their fear, and solves a problem, like I said, you're already separating. It's a very incompetent space. So a little bit of competence that's visible to the marketplace, and you're already separating. And then you can really take off. So the opportunity is big there. So I started putting out content of value, financial literacy stuff, and helping improve credit scores, because nobody wants a mortgage. There's nothing sexy about a mortgage. Everyone wants a house, but they can't get the house without the mortgage. But what do they need before the mortgage? They've got to have their money right. So I could talk to them about that. So that's where I chose to focus, which made it a little bit more engaging. I had a lot of trial and error with some of the stuff that didn't work. And I'll tell you just really quickly as an example, so that everyone else, I could save you 2 years. I share this all the time. The first 2 years I was going about this all wrong, because I was talking about stuff that I wanted to talk about, or that made me feel smart, or that I thought people wanted to hear, but it wasn't connecting. It was raising visibility, because I would go to networking events and people were like, I saw your video, I saw this, or, you're everywhere. I'm like, good, it's working. I'm like, then why the hell isn't it bringing me any business? And then the light bulb went off after 2 years. I didn't quit it, but after 2 years, visibility was great, but it wasn't turning into opportunities and conversations and dollars. And I recognized it wasn't what people wanted to actually hear. So I had to start putting on, and this is where ChatGPT can save you so much time. If you ask ChatGPT or you use AI models to figure out what people in your market want to hear about, they're raising their hand telling you they want hamburgers. So serve them hamburgers. Don't serve them burritos simply because you have a great burrito when the market wants hamburgers. Give them what they want. That was the mistake I was making. So if I can help anyone avoid that, do it. I got into this wanting to go direct to consumer because I was so angry at real estate agents. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to turn the tables on them. If I get the clients, then I can refer the deals out, and I'll have my power players of who I refer business to, and I'm going to earn their loyalty because I'm the shot caller. Well, it didn't work out that way. I started creating content, and what ended up happening was real estate agents started following my content, and a lot of mortgage people started following. So I started building community. But what was happening was there was a lot of collaboration in there, a lot of power in it. It's how you and I have connected here, right? Like, we're mortgage guys. But I'm like, why would you want to talk to another mortgage guy? There's so much collaboration, right? You've got a powerful platform and an audience you reach. Having these conversations, we can both impact the industry together here in 40 minutes. Like it's a win-win for everybody, right? But most people don't see it that way. So that opportunity to collaborate and connect and come up with stuff that was actually going to be shareable, because what do agents want to do? They see content that they like, they would share it. So not only was I putting out something that, say, 100 agents saw, 30 of them were taking it and sharing it with their audience. Now you do the multiplying effect of how many people follow those agents, and then I could start to see this viral effect of like, okay, the content can actually reach. It may not have hit the intended target initially, but it's going to get there. And it's also raising my credibility and posture amongst these agents, because if they feel comfortable enough sharing something of mine to their audience, then clearly that's an endorsement, at least publicly or optically it is, of me and my services and my business. And if fellow lenders are wanting to learn from me, I can collaborate with them. It ended up turning into a good partnership tool. So that's where it went in the early stages. And now, as a result of that, it's still very much, I would still say 80% of my audience is industry related, but it still allows me to connect with consumers because there's so much opportunity and collaboration within that 80% and the activity that happens there. And 20% of my audience is actual consumers, because every single client I interact with or used to work with in the past, even the ones that didn't choose me, I find ways to connect with them on social because I want to stay in their orbit and I want them to stay in my orbit, because I know that our industry, and Tony, you know this,
Right.
sucks at follow-up and follow back. It's shitty. They're just not good at it. So if I can keep people in my orbit and I don't have to send them some cheesy newsletter about cooking recipes or neighborhood gatherings, but actually find out when they have a life event or that their kid got into that school and I congratulate them, or that they had a baby or whatever it is, and we stay in touch on a human level, this will help cement relationships. But really, guys, the whole reason we create content and why we don't have a choice to do this is because it's meant for the person that's going to do business with us in 8 to 12 months. They don't even know who you are yet. That's why I create content now. So I'm staying on the pathway. I know this was a really long-winded answer and chronology of history of how I was doing all this stuff, but hopefully it was helpful to your listeners. That's where I've gone with it and where I'm at now with it and continuing to do. But for all of you that are listening, you're creating content for someone who has no clue who you are. And for those of you that say, well, my existing group of referral partners or my past clients, they all know who I am. I don't need to do this. Yes, you do. Because if you don't, someone else's content is going to get into their headspace. And people are only as loyal or as faithful as their options. And if you're not an option to them, you run the risk of losing them. But also, you can stay connected to them and cement those relationships even more because of the example I gave you there with life events and what's going on, as opposed to always hitting them up with a business connection. I'm only making this call because I'm wanting to see if you're ready to refinance now or buy now or sell your house now or move up, move down or invest in something. How about we just connect because I saw, sadly, that your dad passed away last year. And on a human level, I know what that's like, right? Like whatever it is, like just be a real human. So that's where the opportunity with this stuff really lies now.
Yeah. Well, that was a fantastic answer. And that's what I get for stringing together like 3 questions into 1 question, right? And then you have to answer all 3 of them at once. No, that was great. I do have a clarifying question then, and a couple of them actually. And then I think we'll call this episode a wrap because I know people only have such, so long of an attention span. But when you mentioned this really made sense to me when you said, if people are looking for hamburgers, don't serve them burritos, right? Even if you make a mad burrito, like they want hamburgers. How do you identify what the people are looking for, right? Like,
great question.
How do you know they want hamburgers? How do you know it's not burritos? Like, what sort of market testing are you doing to try to figure out, okay, what should I make my content about then? What's important to people right now?
Well, it's what the thing that we sometimes forget to do, which is to listen. We got to be aware, like we have to shut up and just listen. If we read the news, we can see what's being put out there and what's out there to get clicks and stoke fear, right? And engagement. So we can see the negative headlines. So we know what people are being confused by or what they're being scared by. And if we listen to our clients, we get a pulse of what's stopping them from wanting to do something or what's holding them back. You put these 2 together and there is your order for the hamburgers that you can serve them. right? We think that we have to be this secret sauce or come up with stuff, but just listening and taking the time to study and watch what's going on out there in the market, like taking time intentionally to scroll content, not to lose your mind and go down a rabbit hole, but to actually see what are people talking about. You might notice some trends that a lot of people are talking about, credits for buy downs in a high rate market. Okay, that clearly is something. Why? Because rates are higher. People are afraid. They think the market's about to fall off and they think the opportunity's lost. No, it's not actually. Higher rates are giving you a better negotiation opportunity, which will potentially give you a credit, which you can use to buy down your rate. And then you're actually fine. You're the winner because you're going to get the house at a better deal and you'll get a rate that nobody else can get. So thinking and listening and being attention, being hyper aware of what's going on around you. We don't do that really well in our industry because we're always trying to dish it up to solve the problem quickly, right? It's almost like good marriage advice. Like a therapist told me a long time ago, like seek to understand, not to be understood. Don't explain yourself. Like just resist the temptation and just bite your tongue for a second and just like, no, let me listen. Let me find out what people are afraid of or what's going on with them in the marketplace. And if you do that and just put your ear to the ground, you'll have all the answers you need and you'll know exactly what to serve people.
That's a good point. I bet you most loan officers on here have had enough conversations with clients that had challenges that they helped them overcome with their knowledge and understanding of the industry, that if you created that into content, there's other people out there who have that same problem, right? That's kind of what you're saying there. I mean, this is
100%. 100%. Just be in the problem solving business. That's all we're trying to do, guys. Nobody needs to reinvent the wheel or come up with this like $1 million quotient or theory or formula. Solve people's problems. You are in the problem solving business, not the mortgage or real estate business. If you wake up every day solving people's problems and use content as a way of doing that, you will have business.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this is a good reminder for the people that are not on social media, but know they need to be. They're really good with clients. You know, they said, if I just had more clients, I could help more people because I'm a great problem solver. Well, just think back to the problems you've helped people, you know, fix in the past, because that client is out there. They just haven't called you yet. You know, just create the same content that you've used to help actual clients, because I guarantee you, if your client had that problem, many other people have that same problem.
100%.
And then I like the idea of taking, like, you know, I was talking to you before about, you know, this Bitcoin thing. Like, to me, it's pretty obvious that, you know, Bitcoin in the last just couple months, I mean, it's all over the place now, but it went from whatever it was at, 60, 70 to 108 for a minute and then down to 95 or whatever. Point is a lot of people made a bunch of money since the election on Bitcoin. And you can tell based on what the price has been doing, people are taking that money out all the time. It gets up to 100 again and they take some out. You know, they're nervous about it or whatever. And most of those people are really young, right? It's mostly the younger demographic that invests in and messes with Bitcoin. I think that's changing now as we go on. That's a whole nother conversation. But you created a video the other day that talked about the crypto effect and how there's going to be people that cashed in their crypto, or maybe they haven't cashed it in yet, but you could plant the seed that, hey, you could cash that in and buy a house and buy an asset that's going to go up in value and so on and so forth. So it's also those kind of trends. I think that's how you can get your content shared, because these are the things that are currently being talked about, right? I saw some great videos in the last couple of days about the removal of all the medical debt on people's credit reports.
Medical collections, yeah.
Like that's a huge one. Huge, you know, it's a good deal and it needs to be talked about. And I promise you, there's people that have that problem today, or it's kept them from thinking that they can buy a house, and now none of that is on there. You know, that's all going to be wiped away. And if that was the thing that kept you from thinking about buying a home, maybe now you're a client, right? So anyways, that's good stuff. All right. So last question for you is around, you know, how often should people be posting on social media? I think everyone's got their own opinion about this. I'm curious your opinion. You know, is this a daily thing? Is this multiple times a day? Is it a couple times a week? Like, what's that look like for the average? And I'm thinking, you know, mortgage real estate professional. What do you think their cadence of posting should be? Or is it just when they have good content, post it and don't try to force it?
Yeah, you know, I think there isn't a wrong answer here. Like, everyone just needs to develop whatever their cadence is, whether it's once a week, 5 times a week, 10 times a week, 2 times a day. You find what you're comfortable with, but you got to be consistent. So if you are sharing content once a week after week, that is your bar. You can't go below that. You've got to do it once a week because the platforms will reward you for being consistent and showing up regularly. But also, guys, it's a crowded world. And if you want to kind of elbow your way into the room and stand out, you're going to have to exert your relevance. You're only going to do that through volume and volume of content. Now, not everyone can just start there. I get it. And it can seem daunting, especially for someone listening to this that's just getting started. So when I got started and I was just using Instagram, I was posting every other day. So 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday was when I was posting. Over time, within a few months, we started doing more content to where we could post every single day. And now we're at a point where on Instagram, we're posting almost twice a day. There'll be a video that goes up in the morning, a video that goes up in the evening, because I made it a big mission this year to 3x the amount of content in 2025 than I did. So I put this joke out that if you were sick of me last year, just wait. You're going to be like pissed off this year because you haven't seen anything from me. So I'm going to crank it up a few notches. Now, you don't have to do that. I'm a little bit insane with this stuff, but I'm on a mission with it. And I'm very clear-minded and clear-eyed on where I'm trying to go with stuff. But for everyone, you just want to be consistent. I think the easiest thing that is such low-hanging fruit and everyone sleeps on it are stories. Being able to do stories anywhere between 3 and 6 a day. And some of you might say 3 to 6 stories a day. It is so easy to do. You could do 3 in a matter of seconds. A photo, an opportunity, a collaboration. You and I being on this podcast together, I took a quick video that we were doing this. That's going to be a story. That took me 2 seconds of effort to say that I'm collaborating with a fellow industry giant and someone I have a lot of respect for. Boom, done. Talking about things and just sharing it because that's how you let people into your life in terms of what you're doing with your day-to-day. It's breaking news. You just went through a neighborhood and saw that there's more homes for sale in the zip code and they weren't really around much last year. And this is an interesting trend. You're just sharing. You don't have to sell anything. You're just telling. So easy to do stories. But if you can get in the habit of just taking your phone out, losing the vanity or the thing that's holding you back of saying, I hate the way I look, I hate the way I sound, I don't know what to say, because I promise you there's a rebuttal for all 3 of those. Right? You sound fine, you look fine, and you do know what to say. You're good at what you do. You're just overthinking it, but just talk in the moment, right? The way you would as if a client called you right now and said, I need a mortgage or I want a house. What do I got to do today? You'd know what to say. You already know what to say. So just take the pressure off yourself and just share things. But I would tell everyone, share stories every day. Start off with 2 or 3, build your way up. Again, whatever your bar is, don't fall below it. If you're posting regular content and you're getting things started, set whatever cadence you want, but do not go backwards. And if you raise it and you go from once a week to twice a week, 2 times a week's the floor now. Can't fall below that. I got to stick with it. This holds you accountable and it keeps you sharp and it keeps you engaged in your business because you have to refine your skills. And as business owners and operators, that's something we all should be doing, right? It's not a chore. I should be trying to get better at my business and sharpen the blade, right? All the time. So just stick with being consistent and you'll be fine.
I love it. I love it. Great advice. So before we wrap up, any final comment, any little nuggets that I should have asked you about that I didn't, that you think might be great for the audience, or are we good there?
No, I think, just the last bit, I'll just tell everyone, and this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. And I hope it helps move the needle for some people to get started or take it up a notch if you already did get started, is recognize this. If you're sitting there saying, well, I don't know if how often I could do it or whatever. If you know you're good at what you do and you don't share it out there, because to your point, Tony, you said one person could be affected by this, right? If you're not sharing what you know, you're actually being selfish. You're making it about you. It's not about you. It's about them. It's about the audience. So stop worrying about how you look and sound, or if you have bags under your eyes or whatever. I put out more content last year than I did the year before, and that was with having a newborn at home. I wasn't sleeping at all. I look like crap in most of my videos. I don't care. It's not about me. It's about them. So if you start thinking that you're in service to everyone else, you'll flip this and realize you actually have an obligation and a responsibility to your audience and the people you serve to serve them up nuggets of value and information. It's not about you. It's about them. So just remember that.
I love it. Well, Arjun Dhingra, thank you for all of your wisdom on this call. Look, I think this was great. This was exactly the kind of conversation I wanted to have. If nothing else, I want to get people inspired to just do a little bit more, do a little bit more than you're doing today. If you haven't started, get started. If you've started, but you're inconsistent, then focus on getting consistent. And if you're consistent and your message isn't resonating, maybe you're serving up, burritos when it needs to be hamburgers. Change up your content, leverage AI to help you do that. I think it all makes sense. And if you enjoyed the market shares content that we have today, please let people know about our podcast. This is something that I'm committed to doing. As you guys all know, every single Friday we drop another episode, and I'm consistent with it. And we want to, let more people in the mortgage space know about market shares, and then bring on more people like Arjun who are, doing this stuff at a high level, highly successful, and share those ideas with our audience. So that's what we're looking to do. And you can find us here every Friday. Thank you so much, Arjun. I appreciate it again. And to our audience, I appreciate your time and attention, because that's the one thing that you can't pay for. So I appreciate everybody. Take care.